Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America, we bring the resource to you. The DU Podcast with your host, Chris Jennings.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jennings. Today we've got friend of the show, Tony Vandemore. He's up in Missouri right now. Snow goose hunting. He had to walk out of the field to join us today. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, we're trying to provide everyone with a little bit of update for the light goose conservation order. It is steamrolling right now from what I can tell, and just want to get a little update from you on what you're seeing and what the conditions are like up there in your area.
Well, it's been we've definitely had a really early warm-up. When we were down in Arkansas around the 1st of February on that full moon, that big warm-up, they were rolling north hard. And we got big numbers of geese in Missouri a lot earlier than normal. Had a little cold snap last week that sent quite a few of them back south, just a little reset for 2 or 3 days, but they're back in force now, which is, still relatively early.
Absolutely.
But there's no snow.
Yeah, and that's going to be a real factor right now. I mean, I know you guys hit them pretty hard, and you got out of Arkansas, like the first week of February? You were pretty much moving back up, and were you hunting or were you taking a break there?
No, we finished up, I think it was around the 14th. We moved some groups up to Missouri before that. We started up here around the 8th or so, but we actually got a few guys out of Arkansas and brought them up here. Our experience this year in Arkansas, I mean, every year's different. There were better birds than last year in terms of decoying them, especially the first week. But you hunt down there a lot more than I do. But whenever it's wet, to me, it's tough. You're sitting there watching 15,000 birds feed and waiting to go to roost, and then at dark they jump up and they go 200 yards away to 10 acres of sheet water in the corner of the field. Just wet years for us are tough down there. They don't string out. They don't go very far from the roost. Most of the time they're feeding in the same field they're roosting in. And it was plenty wet that second week.
Absolutely. I mean, we run into that a lot. And the thing is, we're hunting massive feeds normally. And, those birds, and we have an expectation that they're going to do something. And then they do something completely opposite, or you show up and there's another massive feed, within a mile that they see, and that just kind of hopped over. It can get really frustrating, especially like you say with those wet conditions.
Yeah, there's just so much water.
Yeah, and I really think it's a different bird in Arkansas than once they get up there in northern Missouri with you. Their behavior significantly changes as far as, with the water and the feed. And so it's just you have to kind of adapt your tactics a little bit. I know that it can get frustrating. But so Los Bluff, right there in your neck of the woods, reporting 1 million birds. That's a pretty significant number for, February 20th. Where do you see that migration as far as being strung out? And where the central location is.
That's kind of the problem I see with it anymore is it's so strung out. I mean, those old birds, the breeders, they are constantly pushing that snow and ice line, and they're going so fast anymore. I mean, it seems like there's 1 million that get to Los Bluffs every year, earlier and earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a huge number out in the basins in Nebraska.
I'm hearing bird reports from, Iowa, Nebraska, obviously your area, and then all the way down still into North Louisiana and South Mississippi. So, kind of from what I'm hearing, like I hunted just a few days ago in Arkansas, and we had one decent shoot out of 2 days, and it was all Ross's geese, which is a pretty good indication that we're, nearing that tail end. But there's still, I drove back, from Stuttgart over to Memphis, and I probably saw, 2 or 3 small feeds, which small, but they were significant. So that's the thing is they seem to be really strung out. Plus, are you hearing anything regarding that kind of a little bit further eastern push? Are you hearing guys talking about all these birds in Indiana and, southeastern Illinois? Are you hearing any reports of that?
Yeah, for sure. And it seems that's getting to be more the case every year. I mean, I grew up in Illinois, and we never saw snow geese when I was a kid. Now, there's a lot of them that come up through there.
Yeah.
A lot. And I think there's quite a few there now. I don't know, honestly, where the bulk of them's at. I would have to think, just judging by the numbers I've seen, they've got to be at Los Bluff in Nebraska. There's no snow to speak of anywhere. And, that kind of coincides with a lot of duck seasons and what we hear down south. I mean, whenever there's no snow, these things, they just don't, they get in a hurry, the snows especially, and they're constantly going to push that. You get 50,000 snow geese on 4 inches of ice, and I think they can open it up fairly quickly. And they don't mind, them old birds don't mind just standing on the ice, but they're going to constantly push as far as they can based on, still being able to get food and get a drink here and there.
Yeah. I mean, those hardy adult birds are they're difficult to hunt. You have to respect them. I mean, they're fascinating birds, and they are certainly pushing north hard right now. As far as juveniles go, I mean, are you seeing a significant difference from last year?
I certainly heard we were going to see a significant difference based on, all the hunt reports and guys that I trust that hunted them this fall in Canada and Dakotas and whatnot. I mean, they had lots and lots of juvies and juvie Rossies, and I glassed a lot of flocks that stopped here this fall, and, the color looked pretty good. 10, 15% juvies on a lot of them, and we haven't seen them yet this spring. I know that.
Yeah, you guys are really up against it right now with the adult birds, I'm sure. But yeah. I think that's a pretty safe estimate, from what I've heard and from what we're seeing is 10, 15, even upwards of maybe 20%, on average, which has helped some of the hunters down here this spring. And I'm sure you guys should see those here within the next 10 days. Coming within the next 10 days, let's talk about that. We're looking at what's your weather going to look like, and what are you expecting, within the next 10 to 15 days?
I think hopefully the big race is over, the race to get to the ice line, Nebraska and Los Bluffs. And hopefully now we'll start to get into some staging birds. Our weather's cold. It was 13 degrees this morning, but we're supposed to get up in mid-40s today, mid-50s tomorrow, mid-50s on Sunday. Big warm up, but then right back into the teens for lows and high 20s next week. So hopefully there'll be something that'll, that weather next week will throw the brakes on some of them, because right now they're in hurry mode.
Yeah, and that's pretty typical for you up there, kind of going back and forth on the real sharp swings to really, really fairly cold into like a mild warm up. Those birds will push, so you kind of get that fluctuation of birds going back and forth.
Yep, absolutely.
So what time of year are you guys basically wrapping up?
Typically, from an outfitting standpoint, we'll usually have huntable numbers of birds till 10th to 12th of March in our area. It gets a little bit later, further up in northwest Missouri. And we'll end up hunting them till, early to mid-April.
Yeah.
But from a good number standpoint, normally I'd say the end of the first week of March, it's starting to get pretty thin. And honestly, had been kind of worried about it with as quick as it's been happening already, but it's easy to get antsy, seeing, the big numbers north and, decent numbers here and warm temps coming. But at the end of the day, the migration is always very long. I mean, there's a lot of birds. It's strung out. It just seems like it's even more strung out with the older birds and no snow line to really check anything up.
The Ducks Unlimited Expo, May 15th, 16th, and 17th, 2020 at the Texas Motor Speedway in Fort Worth, Texas. Interactive villages, shooting, archery, dogs, fishing, kayak, canoe, 4x4 off-road tracks, ATV, UTV track, industry experts, demonstrations, exhibitors, and more. The Ducks Unlimited Expo, everything outdoors. The ultimate playground for the outdoor enthusiast. The Ducks Unlimited Expo. Visit www.duckexpo.com.
One more thing to ask you before we let you get back into the hunt. Can you kind of provide people an idea of, what your setup is? Like if someone were to come up there, and hunt with you. Like, how does that whole process go through? You know, we sit here and talk about snow goose hunting all the time, and there's a large majority of hunters who have never done it. Sometimes they're basing their opinions off of whether in an Instagram video or, you know, whatever they're doing, but just kind of give people an idea of what that process looks like and what your decoy spread looks like and e-collars and all of that.
Well, it kind of differs, you know. In Arkansas, we're hunting only feeds, just because there's so much water. They roost in a lot of different areas, and you don't necessarily have the traffic that you do up in Missouri. Up here, they're all coming from one central location. They're coming from the refuge, so you've got them pinned as far as where they're sleeping at. And then they're going out to feed in the morning, coming back in to the refuge, you know, late morning. And then they're going back out to feed in the afternoons. And for that reason, we've transitioned more to, you know, big heated pits and large full body decoy spreads with, you know, lots of sounds and motion. And your bird numbers, I mean, they're constantly fluctuating. I mean, you might have 50,000 leave overnight and 25,000 new ones show up the next day. So you can get away with running some of that permanent stuff. But just trying to get in known feeding and migration lines and running traffic on them.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think that paints a pretty good picture and gives people an idea of what you guys are dealing with up there. Hey, Tony, I appreciate you joining me today. Hope everyone kind of benefits just from getting an update of where the light goose migration is, everything from what I'm seeing to what you're seeing, large geographical difference in seeing these birds pushing hard and fast. But I do appreciate you joining me. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I mean, I hope you guys get some more good shooting down there. I mean, the biggest thing is, you know, these things are smart, but this spring migration is a spectacle. I mean, it's unbelievable to see whether you're killing them every day or not. It's pretty awesome to sit there and watch what's going north, specks and Canadas and ducks and snows, and get under a few of them big spins.
Absolutely. That's great. And it is. It's an awe-inspiring, one of the greatest, probably the greatest spectacle in waterfowl and waterfowling and migration are these big spring migrations. So I definitely encourage people to get out there and encourage you to get back to the blind. I'm sure they're probably sitting around like, where'd Tony go?
Yeah, they'll see me soon enough.
All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Have a good day. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Tony Vandemore for joining us today to provide a light goose conservation order update. I'd like to thank Clay Baird, our producer, for doing a fantastic job putting the show together. And I'd like to thank you, the listener, for joining us and supporting wetlands conservation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the DU Podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit www.ducks.org/DU Podcast for resources based on today's topics, as well as access to more episodes. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ducks Unlimited. Until next time, stay tuned to the Ducks.